Hey, this is Amy sending love from California to King Eric Productions. I love the show and I love what you're doing. And I'm definitely tuned in.
Blog Talk Radio.
The motherfucking saga continues.
Yo, what's up, world? It's badass thuggin' like I usually do, and you better turn it up, bust some speakers out, cause we off the motherfucking cuff. You dig how we do it? Dog Pound Gangsters 2000 and beyond. Bleh.
What's up with it, John? Man, don't change that down. This your player partner, the legendary Cocaine. And you tuned in live to Off the Cuff Radio. Better not touch that down. Wiggling.
Yeah, this is Cassidy, the hustler. And right now, you listening to the Guillotine. Show them the respect they deserve, man. Off the Cut Radio, man. Y'all already know how they doing it, man. I need y'all to stay tuned. They've been doing it for years, so show them the respect they deserve. And you heard it out of bars, mouth. Easy.
Keep it moving like this. Yo, this your boy Rampage. You're not rocking with the best. With Off the Cuff Radio. Classic. History. Fix your face to all you haters. We off the cuff, baby.
What's up, everybody? This your girl, Bonnie Dollars, the Queen of Trap, representing Crenshaw, and you are now tuned in with Off the Cuff Radio. What's up? What's up, y'all? This is Miss Irresistible, giving a shout-out to the livest show on Friday nights, Off the Cuff Radio, and I'm live from the 704. Make sure y'all tune in for the blazing hot music.
What it ain't, what it do. Chili Chill from that original Lynch Mob. Off the Cuff Radio, always where it's at on Friday nights. West, y'all.
Yeah. Live and direct, Off the Cuff Radio, episode 651. I'm your host, King Eric, the Media Assassin. And this show is sponsored by Da Vinci Clothing, Buddy Boy Entertainment, Screwball Radio. Got my co-host T-Max with the facts on the line. What's good?
What it do, y'all? Another fantastic Friday on the freshest frequency on the internet. Of course, it is Blog Talk. It is Off the Cuff Radio, formerly on Blog Talk Radio, but now on StreamYard. Shout out to our co-host of Spirit Ill out of Sandman, Lady Chinchilla, of course, DJ Sincere up in New York City of Dirty Basement Radio. We are ready to get it rocking. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have another outstanding entry in our illustrious chapter with one of the most prolific MCs representing P-Town in California. That's right, Pomona, home of course, Above the Law, Mr. Marcus, the legendary Cocaine and his lovely family, and of course, the gentleman we have, Shang Manson, who is definitely part of that young California movement, keeping Cali active, doing what he does with some of the dopest dialogue ever laid to wax and poetic, put it down, floetic. Man, we can't wait, King.
What up, y'all?
What it do, Shang? How you?
Good, man. How about yourself?
Oh, good, man. All right, I see it in the back, man. The kicks are alive, man, and they're full.
Yeah. Hey, what I gotta say though, I'm although very Cali connected, man. I'm actually from Vegas.
Okay, Vegas. Okay.
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Las Vegas. All
yeah,
right,
West
all right.
Coast, still Vegas. Yeah, but
look,
a lot of
702
activity.
Through.
Yes, sir.
Man, Shang, this is an honor. This is a privilege. Shout out to our peoples in Las Vegas, of course, with Yauda, Native Nevada, everybody over at MMG, of course, International Boxing Hall of Fame. Man, shout out to Michelle Corrales Lewis, the head of it. Man, it's Vegas was out there last year, man. Vegas is just absolutely incredible, man.
Yeah, it's a good spot.
Yes, it is. We're happy to have you with us, man. Let's get right to it. Tell everybody about
Sure.
yourself. And, of course, you're from Vegas. Tell everybody about your entry into this game of hip hop, doing what you do, man.
Man, I started rhyming it when I was about 16 years old, back in the 90s. And, I linked up with a crew out here called the Desert Dwellers, Zach Brown and some other folks. And later on, we became and started Head Stipulated Productions. We did that through the early 2000s, mid 2000s. And then, I stepped away from it for many years, man. I just, not a lot of motion out here in Vegas, and the game was changing so much that it was just time to step away. And then recently, I met Joe Fresco about a year ago. Fresco hit me up and wanted to use. I got a Fox Body Mustang, the Katie Kane style, and from Menace, and so we linked up, met up with him. We hit it off. Did his video with the car, and he kept trying to, throughout the conversation, he found out that I used to rhyme, and kept trying to get me to, hey, let's do something. And I'm like, man, I don't do music anymore, man. I'm done with that. And he wouldn't leave me alone about it, man. So he finally sent me a beat, and it had the King T played like a piano,
Oh, man.
bass line in
Oh,
it.
that's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Off the
And
At Your Own Risk album, 1990.
yeah, it just caught me, man. So hooked up with my man DB Dollars from out here in Vegas. He laid a hook and a verse for it. Joe put a verse down for it, and it just kind of, we were back in, so started recording this album, and loved felt back in love with the process, and so here we are, and now we got the full map of movement, and making got a little bit of motion.
Man, shout out to Joe Fresco representing that SJ rather, for San Jose, for those that know. We had him on a few months back. Great individual, solid guy.
No
Of
doubt.
course, Black C and the whole RBL family, man, keeping it going. When we think about it, Shane, what you were saying about how the music game can, depending on where you're from, not necessarily be, major. What you've done in terms of the dopeness that you've laid to all speakers with the 5 fingers of slaptastic, it's a testament to tenacity, to perseverance, and believing in yourself. What do artists have to understand about what it means starting out in the game and really gritting and grinding, trying to sprinkle everybody with the flavor that maybe everybody ain't got a chance to taste yet, but still going to savor once they get a hit of it?
Yeah, I would say, man, it starts with your product, right? If you got dope product, you're gonna find some dope customers along the way, man. And I think that when you focus on your product first, you got to put some money into your product. Recording at home is cool, but go home, go find a real engineer, get it mixed and mastered. And once you have a dope product, then you got to go out and do the research on these platforms, and so you can figure out how to access these streams on DSPs, right? You got to run ads on Instagram, you got to run Google ads on your YouTube video if you can figure out how to get them approved. But you really got to figure out how to crack the algorithm, and you got to keep going, and I'm lucky enough, man. I've had some real seasoned, game tight individuals like Black C and Joe Fresco who know the game, recently, you just spoke with Anthony Danza, another individual that is supremely gamed up in how to crack the algorithm. So, I'm still learning, but the numbers are going up. We just did 100,000 views on Instagram on the cocaine video, Popping the Night. So, we got some real motion, man. And so yeah, that's that.
Yep, man.
That's dope.
It is. When you think about that, and the hundreds of shows we've been so blessed to do, you've given us that wisdom that we, my brother and myself, we're always just chopping it up with people in the streets, when we're off there. And what you said, Shang, is something that is essential because you get out of this game what you put into it in terms of drawing up the play to execute what you got. Strategy is of the utmost imperative, and a lot of artists think by osmosis or by meritocracy that, or just sheer luck, that just because they have product that it's automatically supposed to go global, but they don't understand that there's a type of effort and energy that needs to be exercised in order to get that fitness of fresh off. Um, when you think about how the game is moving today, and you're obviously a student of the culture, how have you seen it change from when you was a young buck coming up, kicking up dust, to being a grown man, on his grind, every 24/7 time, you know what I'm saying, in terms of marketing, in terms of um, the level of talent, in terms of getting out there and really, really pushing product?
Yeah, I think again, coming up as a youngster, man, when when we were all buying tapes and whatnot. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you really, the streets really was Instagram, right? I mean, it was, we just got word of mouth, like, hey, this new DJ Quick tape just dropped. Have you heard it? And then you go to the record store, out here in Vegas, we had a spot called Odyssey Records. And then, like my neighborhood I grew up in, we had the Discount Mall with a spot called the Mix Shop in there. And he would make you a tape of all the hottest records. So you could hear about it that way. And it was all just word of mouth or magazines. You had to read about stuff, watch. You had to watch Yo MTV Raps to really see what was going on. I'd say the biggest change is the technology, man. Like the ability to get your music heard, um, you know, quickly is accessible to everybody out there. Where before it took a machine like these record labels to really get music out to the world. I mean, so I mean, music has obviously changed. The way you record music. I mean, I come from an era of recording. It was all analog, and you record on DATs, and now it's all digital, and you can set up a home studio. So the quickness that you can get music to people with these days is, to me, the biggest change.
Absolutely. And
And you,
go ahead, King. Go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, and then going ahead and finding your style and your niche. Who were some of your influences, like musical influences?
So for me, I'll start with a story about how I fell in love with hip hop. So my
Mm-hmm.
pops, growing up, my stepfather who raised me, um, he was a big music head, and he was into a lot of soul music, a lot of funk, a lot of R&B. He took me to a UNLV game, and at halftime, uh, LA Dream Team was on, and LL Cool J, unknown at the time, really. They both performed at halftime. And LL used to do a lot of West Coast shows back then.
Mm-hmm.
So when I heard it, I was just like, man, what is, I'm like 6 years old, right? And I'm like, man, what is this? Because I was just, I was into funk and soul because my dad was, but I had never really heard, you know, hip hop. And so my dad went and got the vinyl, brought it home, told me don't touch it, don't play it. As soon as he left the house, I'm turning it up on the big speakers. And man, when I heard that I can't live without my radio, I was like, oh, it was mind blown, right? So, for me, after that, it was NWA came, but and then DJ Quick, who is absolutely one of my favorite, I think most underrated artists of all time because he's so talented musically. It's just the style of music he makes never really got him that critical acclaim, in my opinion. But I'd say, if I'm doing top five, top six is Black Thought, Three Stacks, Rakim, Cube, Scarface. Cool G Rap was a huge influence on me early. So those are the guys that I look to. I don't think, I actually have a bar on a song I did for one of my guys out here, Tariq Starr from Live Soul. I say, how y'all got goats when 3K and Black Thought living, and so I think when we talk about GOAT status, you really go back and study Black Thought's lyrics and his rhyme patterns and his ability. Same with Stacks, man. Andre 3000 is amazing. So there's a lot of amazing MCs out there, but them guys for me always stood above and beyond everybody else.
Yeah. Y'all hear me?
Yep.
I think I lost my little sound a little bit. Hey, T, you there? I'm going to bring him back on. Hold on 1 second.
All right.
Yeah, we had little technical issues going ahead, but we back at it. Off the Cuff Radio, Shang Manson, live and direct with us. Yeah, I'm gonna have him come back in a second.
All right.
So yeah, going on with your project, man. Tell us how much you put thought into going into this project and how it differs from your others.
So a lot of my music from back when, man, it was a very, it was like a boom bap, more but with a West Coast feel to it. So I've always been, I always loved the West Coast sound, and always been particular, in trying to create that sound, but a little differently. This time I've always been in love with funk music, and then later on specifically G funk. And so I really wanted to get that true West Coast G-Funk sound into this project. So I went and tapped in with a lot of different producers, like Hallway Productions, Darren Vegas, who was a former Death Row in-house producer, Lonzo, Able Beats, John T, and other producers, man, and really just wanted to tap into that real classic West Coast sound.
Hold on, I'm gonna bring T back on. We have a little technical issues. I think it was something on my way. I think I had a power issue. Hold on 1 second. Bring him back on. God dang it. Hold on 1 second. It's what happens sometimes, y'all. Technical difficulties happen, man, but we pros about this shit. Hold on 1 second. All right, T, you on? Ah, man, hold on 1 second. This part is what we're going to cut off the interview, y'all. Sometimes we got to cut these technical difficulties out. Hey, T, you on? Hold on 1 second. Mic check, y'all on?
Yeah, I'm on here.
All right, trying to get T back on. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, I got him on stage, but it's not responding. Hold on 1 second. Okay, I'm about to go. In the meantime, till I hear from him, we about to go ahead and continue going on. I'm about to pivot this here. Yeah, he should be back on shortly. All right. In the meantime, man, we going back at it. So we talking about you putting the album together, and out of all the songs that you put together, what was your favorite track that you laced up there?
Oh man, I got one. I got one called "It Is What It Is," and I had Hallway do a twist on Ice Cube's "Ghetto Bird" um, beat. And so I think that's probably my favorite one. I love the 5.0 song. I mean, it's really I mean every song that we put on there. I mean, I'm in love with, but I think "It Is What It Is" my favorite one. And another one of my top songs on there is a song actually Sunday that I'm gonna shoot the video with Dizzy Wright. I don't know if y'all familiar with Dizzy Wright, but we got a
Yeah, we
song.
familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, we got a song. So I was shooting that video on Sunday at the listening party here in Vegas, produced by my guy Zach Brown from Stimulated Tracks. So you know, it's a couple favorites on there, but I'm really, I mean, I keep listening to it, and you know, I'm liking every single song on there. There's no skips in my opinion.
I mean, when you think about it, Shane, coming from Vegas, you're home to you come from the home of arguably the greatest college team ever, the 1990 UNLV Running Rebels.
Yes, sir.
I
Yes,
Word.
sir.
mean, I mean, everything with Vegas is associated with opulence, luxury, hustle. You embody all of that. Like we said earlier, we see the sneaker collection, so we know we know the indulgence. Um, when you think about Vegas, everybody sees the glamour and glitz, but what is it like growing up out there? Tell us about the hood you came up in and what you know, experienced growing up just on a day to day.
So Vegas was, you know, it was a tumultuous place, man, in the 80s and 90s, just like a lot of cities, you know, when crack hit, you know, it really shook the city up, man, and you know, but that happened all over the country. But Vegas itself, you know, it was a very segregated town. You know, they used to call it the New South. There's actually a great documentary on YouTube that just dropped called Across the Tracks, and it gives a deep history about you know, the Strip, and you know, how folks, you know, could work on the Strip, couldn't hang out on the Strip type shit. So you know, Vegas had a lot of that lasting you know, kind of makeup within the neighborhoods that we grew up in. So Vegas is really broken up into three sections, and it's the west side, then you got Northtown, and then the East Side. And I grew up in Northtown, specifically on Belmont and Lake Mead, in a section that was predominantly Hispanic and Black. Not too many white folks in that area. So growing up for me, I mean, I had a lot of love where I was from. You know, I had a big group of folks around me that I still run with to this day. You know, but I had to fight a lot, you know, and got into the mix a lot, and you know, was you know, running the streets for quite some time. But you know, over time, man, Vegas has changed so much. So when I graduated high school, I believe the city had maybe 800,000 people. Right now, we're sitting at 3 million residents, right? So the city has seen astonishing growth, and it's been that way since I was a teenager. Every year, just grew. So when a city is growing that fast, I always say that if you can't get money in Vegas, you'll never get money anywhere, because when the city has that kind of growth, there's so much opportunity. No matter which street you go down, or what avenue you take, there's an opportunity to make money. And so Vegas for me, I've lived a couple other places. I've lived in California in a couple spots. I lived in Atlanta for a short spell.
Oh wow, you was moving
Yeah,
around.
been all over the country. I travel a lot, and but Vegas, man, I just this is my home, and I could never see myself living anywhere else. A 24-hour town, right? You can gamble at the gas station if you want. You can go to a bar at any time. We don't know what last call is here, so it's a good town to be from.
Man, absolutely. Shout out to the Orleans Hotel and Casino when I was out there, me
Yeah,
and my family, man.
we also hoping too, since you guys acquired the Raiders, they can give us some winning season.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping, man. We need a quarterback. I don't think Geno Smith gonna cut it. I mean, all right, but he's not gonna get you a ring. So
I don't know. We got Pete Carroll in. So I mean, what he
yeah,
did
we
with
got Carroll. Yeah,
USC,
let's see. Yeah, we gonna see,
look what
man.
he did with
We need a
USC in
quarterback.
Seattle. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Big P, man.
Yeah, we need a good draft though, man. We like to do crazy things during the draft.
We need that strong first round pick.
Yeah.
Look, we
Yeah.
hoping Mark Davis get it right, man. I mean, you're Vegas through and through. I mean, when you got Vegas, you think about all the hoods you may have been through, like West Las Vegas, Charleston Heights, Pioneer Park, Sunrise, Michael Way, Angel Park, downtown East, and when you see the when you see what you've dealt with in the streets in terms of how it influenced your music, as you as an artist, when you hear a lot of artists out there, um, in terms of creating their art, how important is it to you that somebody that's really seen things and experienced things, that authenticity is the main ingredient in terms of an artist, with their arts?
I mean, I think for me it's important. I think it is entertainment, but I don't, listen, I believe in manifestation, right? And what you manifest and what you put out to the world is going to come back at you 10 times, right? So, karma's bitch. And so if you putting out all that kill, it's going to come back to you, right? And if that's not what you're really about, you shouldn't be talking about that, right? And so I believe in your content being authentic to who you are. And listen, it's a braggadocio game, right? So of course there's braggadocio built into it, but I just say be who you are, man. Like, and that's what people, I think, feel more than anything is authenticity. I mean, 20 minutes in, you're gonna tell if somebody's authentic or not. And whatever you're rapping about, you go do some shows, they're gonna test you on that.
Yeah. I think when we look at where everything is, because we are all from that generation of hip hop, of understanding, number one, where real lyricism is, and then number two, understanding the history. And if you really are connected with people, knowing the story behind it. When you mentioned Kool G Rap, who's my favorite MC ever, and knowing his story, about how he was really getting down them streets, it's something to be spoken on, man. Because when we look at the internet era now that we're living in, the technological age, doing a video, especially with the expedited nature of media, people can really put out there whatever they want to put out there. And sometimes, when we think about the cars, the money, the jewelry, it's so much overflow and abundance now. And back in the day, you kind of had to have some real connects to be able to do that. In terms of really being able to, I remember when Ice-T, shout out to him and Douglas Century and Spike writing the book Split Decision. And Ice-T was talking about, when he was getting in the game and when they started doing the videos and everything, he was like, all that stuff was there. It's like the Rolexes, the cars, even the guns, like that was all real shit that they were doing. When you think, like you said, Shang, what you say is what you manifest out there. what do artists have to understand about making sure that they keep it artful instead of totally aggressive? Where do you think this whole element now of speaking disrespect on wax in such an egregious and disrespectful manner, how do you think that's become so prevalent in the culture now? Where did we go wrong with it?
So I think it's always been there. I mean, you go back into our era and listen to Brother Lynch on, I mean, it's always
Yeah,
been there.
Sacramento stand up.
Yeah, it's always Brother Lynch is one of the coldest, right? But his content on some of them albums, man, he's talking about eating babies and I loved it. But so I wouldn't say that it's gotten more egregious. I would say that it's just become more accessible to us, right? And I like every cat I see a video on Instagram of got a AR or something in the video, and I'm like, man, you're gonna go to jail, bro. Like, they watching you, man. Like, I think the celebration of guns and violence, I think, has always been there. I just think it's more accessible and it's just more of it now. Again, there was only one Brother Lynch back then that was talking crazy like that, right? And now you might you got thousands of new videos dropping every day. We only saw what was fed to us. Right now, it's just an open market. So I don't think it's more egregious. I just think it's just more available.
I think it's also the lack of balance too.
Yeah. I think what we have less of, and I talk about this a lot, we have less of, growing up, we had Public Enemy, you had X Clan, you had Pac that was on his when he was on that, from Tupacalypse Now to Me Against the World, you had real artists out there speaking positively, right? Leaders of the new school. You can go on and on and on, right? Yeah, speaking positive messages, in the sense of not talking about violence in the streets and not talking about gangs and not talking about guns, but actually had a real positive message. And so, and that, I don't think you really have that anymore. I think that is the lost art, of where hip hop has gone. Is you've lost those very powerful leaders in hip hop that they're still there, but they're just, the younger generations don't know, for the most part, they don't know about them, right? And they don't know the impact that had on us as youngsters, like hearing that, and so I think that's a big part of what we see too. But I think a lot of that is by design,
Yeah, man. I mean, that's just the unfortunate part, but I think that's where the internet provides a great balance. Like that's the pros and cons to the shit, and the internet helps us introduce us to artists like yourself that we haven't really heard of, but just by Instagram and how it maneuvers and how Twitter maneuvers, it's like an open market now.
Yeah. And I'll say this. I think it's part of the reason why I got back into music. Is that music is, I think it's changing, and it's changing, you know, in the right way. I think it's coming back to that more '90s feel, and I don't mean just sound wise. I mean, but like how it was moving. Right, you've got a lot of artists out there. Like I mean, I don't want to mess up his name, but is it Akeem Ali? Is that his name? The guy that's just kind of hitting the scene now. Super dope lyricist. I don't think 5-10 years ago he would have been able to break in like he is now. And I'm trying to look up his name. Yeah, it's Akeem Ali. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, Kimi Casanova. Very, very, very dope artist. And then Toby and Gwigwi that were doing what he did during COVID. That was so I think a lot of those type of guys like La Russell and Larry June and a lot of those guys that have that have really excellent messaging. I love what La Russell's doing, and I think when you look at what La Russell's doing, what he how he put Richie Rich back in a winning position, and Richie Rich is one of the dopest from the West Coast ever, right? And Rich is now all over the place, and I think so. We're seeing guys like La Russell, and kind of lead that charge and get music back to where it's supposed to be. But music feels better to me than it's felt in a long time, right? And that's no shot at any of the younger artists. I have a respect for all the young guys and what they do. But music, in my opinion, for some time was just headed down a terrible path, and I think we're getting back to where it needs to be.
Absolutely, because you have the dope content overshadowing the whack shit, and people can't front on anything that's dope anymore. Like, you can't suppress good music, despite
No, and
how
you
even
really,
labels don't want to play it or
yeah.
they don't want to push it. It's like the fans is responding to it, the people responding to it, the streets is responding to it. We gotta let it flow.
Yeah. And you got guys like, Cocaine, man. I think I met Cocaine through this process. And Cocaine and his brother, Fats, man, they two of the most solid people I've met throughout this process, man. Just, gave us
Absolutely.
a lot of game, and the game, we all grew up in that era that the game is to be sold, not told, but that's not true, man. Like, you gotta give folks game, man. You gotta help people out, so that karma comes back the right way. And Cocaine and Fats, man, they were so willing to share and give me some game on this industry and how to maneuver and the process, went from recording to shooting the video with them. It was just a phenomenal process. And I think guys like that are really in Black Sea, the same thing, man. Black Sea is, an individual that is, he's a legend in all of this. And, when you have guys like that are putting out new, fresh music, I think it's helping change it's shifting the entire culture.
Absolutely. And what you said is it's facts. Shout out to Cocaine, shout out to Fats, shout out to Black Sea, shout out to Richie Rich. Of course, we've had them on our show. And the lessons that they gave us, the friendship that we've been able to form with them, the wisdom that they have imparted to us has been priceless. When you think about that's that's West Coast royalty.
Yeah.
In terms of what they have contributed to the game, and not only just West Coast royalty, but hip hop legendary. When you think about being among those guys and being a student of this and being a willing student, especially when we see a lot of the younger generation that does not embrace the wisdom of the elders that came before them, where do we bring that bridge between the new generation and the older generation of them coming together and understanding each other's position in terms of where things are presently at in the present day today?
So I think it really is two things. Number one, for me, I like to I like to be a good student in the sense of you got to let your ego die, right? And because your ego will kill you in so many ways, right? And it'll kill relationships. It'll kill you getting the game you need. And by ego, I mean I'm not going to pretend like I know everything, right? To even be talking about being in the same room as Black Sea and Cocaine for me, is I mean, as a youngster, man, Black Sea was, with Bammer Weed and Bluebird and all the songs, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
to now be able to have his phone number and text him. I was texting with him earlier, and just it's surreal kind of, but in order to build those type of relationships, the ego has to die, right? And guys like Black Sea and Cocaine, they do a good job of not trying to like big homie, me, and so that allows the ego to die quicker. But the second thing, and the thing that I'm passionate about, man, is we in hip hop have like, and we didn't always have this, but and I think and Pac is also one of my favorite artists, right? But Pac, when he said all you old rappers trying to advance, it's over now, take it like a man. Pac really started that kind of age limit on hip hop. We're the only genre of music that has an age limit.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous, right? You got rock and roll guys and country artists that, are still touring at 70 and 80 years old,
Yep.
and putting out new music. Why would we put an age limit on ourselves? And so, we as the older generation have to accept the younger generation, and the younger generation has to accept the older generation, right? So, there was a period where, the older generation that was on was, talking bad about younger artists, and, so that created this divide, but that to me, right, that's the biggest part of it is, stop putting this self-imposed age limit on ourselves as a genre, right? I mean, who said that you can't be a 47-year-old rapper from Vegas, right? Like there's no rule against that. There's no other genre that deals with that. So I think those are the two big things to answer that question.
I think
That's
it
a
also started. I
go ahead,
think
King.
it
Go
even
ahead.
goes deeper than that. I think it goes back to when KRS-One called out Melly Mel for being old and washed.
Yeah, that's yeah. You're right. You're right. 100%. You're 100% right.
When we look at it, and both of you definitely know your history in terms of the impetus of where we are presently at today in terms of the perceptions of it. But one thing about it is good music is good music. When we look at Cool G Rap, who just dropped one of the coldest albums last year, Last of a Dying Breed. When you look at AZ, who in the past couple of years has dropped some phenomenal projects. Hell, we know if Jay-Z decide to drop something tomorrow, we know the shit is gonna be fire.
Right.
It's
You know
gonna
what I'm
heat up the
saying?
internet.
Man, Ghostface Killer, still one of the most colorfully charismatic, creative MCs ever to do it. Still the only man that can rock a Versace smoking jacket with a big ass golden eagle and
Yeah.
the Wallaby champ, undefeated. Um, Black C. Next time you talk to Black C, tell him thank you, thank you, thank you so much again for sending me his book. What him and Joe Fresco did last year with their project. It was absolutely amazing. And I still got to get that CD from them too. I still got to order it. I've been delinquent, but I got to order
Yeah,
it.
they still putting out consistently dope work.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, people
Right
got
there.
to, yeah, man. There it is. Tell them I'm in line to get a copy for it. Yeah, man. But I mean, it's important because we need those elders to show us what they did to get to where they are. And good music is timeless no matter. A definition of classic to me, y'all, is an album or a song that you can play at the minimum 10 years after it's been released and it still slaps to this day. If you throw on The Roots, Things Fall Apart, or Illadelph Half Life, Black Illadelph Half Life was the Roots album that made me a real fan. Um, Black Thought went off on that shit. Cool G Rap, my favorite album by him, Live and Let Die. I mean, that was when you got rhymes like niggas in the street that I dislike, you better get this right. These days, what the fuck is a fist fight? Picture me putting niggas in headlocks when I can lick off shots and put their ass in a box. You disrespected to me trying to throw a right hook. You just looking to get your motherfucking life took because I can't wait to be a nigga's face. So while you lift weights, I'm lifting light ass nickel plates. I'm like,
Shoot.
I'm like, that would buy, I'm like, that would resonate. That was over 30 years ago he was spitting like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool G was ahead of his time, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you think about how you've been moving out there, Shane, in terms of the marketing and everything, how have you been able to really, really connect with everybody? Because we know the market has changed in terms of how the radio stations back in the day, they were more independent, but now they're in bed with the corporations. So now the corporations are dictating what's getting played because they're giving the playlists to the radio DJs and the radio DJs got to go with it. It's just become a game where it's
Politics.
become, yeah, man, it's become so corrupted by popularity in terms of what they feel is popular, but not substance in terms of what is impactful and substantial. What has it been like for you on the DIY, of making it fly, doing what you do, pushing it?
So, listen, I'm still trying to figure out the code right now, algorithm. I mean, we've done some decent numbers. there's a couple folks that are, seeing million views, like Jonathan Price out here in Vegas. He's really excellent at the marketing.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, listen, man, I mean, in all honesty, anything nothing goes viral unless it's paid for. Right. And
Gotcha.
that's the name of the game is, it's pay. It's always been pay for play on radio. No disrespect to anybody on the radio. I have a lot of friends that are DJs and work for radio stations out here in Vegas. But I mean that's the reality, man. And listen, it's not happening it's happened on some local stations here and there, but I mean, it's happening at the highest levels, right? It's the labels paying Infinity or whoever the conglomerates that own the radio stations are. It's what is popular is what's paid for and what the labels want to be popular. And so from an independent level, it's really, about trying to find the algorithm to get your product in front of more people. Right. So, that's why it was a big deal for me doing 100,000 Instagram views on the cocaine video. I've never seen numbers like that before. Right. A lot of my videos, or reels get, anywhere between 5 and 15,000 views. And, so Joe Fresco and I are really focusing hard on really trying to crack that code and working with some ads managers and things like that to get our product in front of more people because we're confident in our product. I think, you touched on the Ruthless album that Joe and Black Sea put out. I think that was the most slept on album. I think they dropped it in 22.
That album
Or
was an instant
maybe
classic.
23. Yeah,
That was an instant classic.
It's a classic album, and it's dope all the way around.
Stay slapper.
Yeah, it's a slapper, right? There's no skips on there, and for that album to not perform at the level it should have, I think is a testament to, what we're talking about, right? It's you got to put big money behind things, and this game is expensive, and so you gotta make sure you got a little bit of money behind it, and and keep pushing and grinding, and I mean it's every day. I was having a conversation with one of my guys the other day about, man, he's like, man, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. It's just so exhausting. But I mean, listen, I think La Russell is the best testament to what happens when you keep pushing.
Yeah.
But even La Russell said he put $100,000 into marketing before he was able to really blow up. 100,000 on an indie level is, it's a lot of bread, right? And but that's what it takes. And he was so persistent, and now look at him, right? He's one of the biggest artists out there. So I think he has given us the blueprint, and he keeps dropping jewels every time you look at Instagram. He's dropping jewels on how to do it. You just got to take the time and really study what he's saying.
And that's facts. People we talk to in the business, I have a few friends that I've been blessed to meet over the years. Usually the round number is, like you said, Shane, between $100,000 and $250,000, because you're talking
about, you got to spend some bread.
Yeah, when you're talking about that level of getting a song out there in terms of being able to get it on the radio, and then, like you said, getting the ads on YouTube and such, the algorithm to push it up, because organic views do exist. I think we don't want to totally discourage people from feeling like you need all of that.
I agree with that.
But by the same token, it is a situation where you do have to have a song that catches the masses. And once it does, it can have exponential results behind that. But in the real world we live in, King started Off the Cuff Radio. As I always joke, this is a baby that, we heterosexually, take care of. You know what I'm saying? We co-parent it. And we're over 130,000 followers on the YouTube channel. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So this is something that we understand the grind, and we did that organically. But people like yourself, Cocaine, all the hundreds of guests we had along the way, you all were the ones that helped us, number one, being so gracious to come on our show, and number two, giving us such dope jewels that people, who listen to our show, it resonated with. So it all works hand in hand. When you're thinking about podcasts and platforms, Shang, you have some artists out there that are very, 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 let's just say straight up, they're very arrogant about it in terms of what they feel is big and not big. What would you say to artists in terms of an opportunity happens to come on a show and and a chance to get on there and do interviews and such in terms of having that exposure?
I mean, for me, I'm taking any and all offers to come on any platform, right? Even if I'm talking to five people, I mean, it's five people that I may not have reached yesterday. So I appreciate you allowing me to come on your platform and share a little bit, But I think a lot of rappers, we all think we're the best rapper, right? We all think
Right.
we are celebrities in our own minds, and I'm no different than everybody else. I think who I am, but I try
He
to,
is him.
yeah, but a lot of that comes with I think age and I've been able to humble myself, but listen, if you would have met me in the mid and late 90s, I would have, in my mind, I'm too big to go on any, to do that, right? And so I think it's growth and maturity that comes along the way, and some young cats just have it already, right? Again, I mean to keep bringing up LaRussell, but I think he's one of them, right? He's a very humble dude, and
Yeah.
I think humbling yourself to think in that mindset of, again, any new viewership is a new viewer, right? And that's why I want people to hear my music. I want people to know that it's authentic, and I want them to share their feedback. If you don't like it, I want to hear it, but I can't do that if I'm not getting out there in front of people talking, right? So I think these are great opportunities for anybody who's on the verge of releasing any product out to the world, and I would encourage everybody to take any offer that comes to them.
Yeah. One thing about it, and I think when we look at a lot of where, of course, because podcasting over the past 15 years has become a really big thing when you have outlets, you know, um, you know, everyday struggle before that changed over, of course, most recently with Drink Champs. Shout out to Lee Sanchez, Nori, and DJ EFN and all those guys. I mean, even though he can be polarizing, even Vlad. But the thing is that everybody wants to try to get on the most known, outlets. But like Meek Mill said, there are levels to it. And you have to get to a place where, your celebrity will facilitate those type of invites. Obviously I'm biased, but it's also a bias rooted in facts. We at Off the Cuff Radio, we like to think, and we know that we are historically rooted, we're academically astute, and more than anything, we're genuine people who really love the culture. And our thing is, and we always tell any artist before they come on the show, we're not going to ask you no crazy questions. We're not going to get you set up. We're not gonna do no digging research about what you.
We're not gonna be wearing no wires.
See, but I think you touched on something key there. It's also up to me if I'm gonna engage in that conversation, right?
Right.
You can ask me any question you want, but it's up to me if what I'm gonna share, and if I think the oversharing of and we have this desire now all of a sudden on these podcasts to share things that we probably shouldn't be sharing, right? So I mean,
right.
I think it's both ways, but I do respect and I appreciate the respect in the line of questioning, and because to me that's not what's important, right? I think
right.
Yeah, what's important is this music, and what are we doing to keep going, so I think you've asked all the right questions versus focusing on maybe something that I was doing when I was in my 20s, right? So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Look, we're here we're about substance, and we're all about a genuine, organic conversation. We're always looking to connect with people in a real way. Okay, so we got to ask you though this: the Kicks collection is flaming. When did you fall in love with shoes in terms of the style? And what's your favorite? And who's your favorite? Who's your favorite brand? And you know, what goes into the daily day of Shang Manson on the Fresh and Fit in terms of how he's gonna go out there fly with it?
So for me, man, I mean, I was a really young cat, man. With I remember, shit, when Jordan won his first dunk contest. Um,
1988.
yeah, so '88, I was already into sneakers. I was 10 years old at the time. My pops was a fly dude. He had the first pair of Jordans. I remember him coming home in the box with them, and I'm like, man, look at these, but really, it was around the Jordan 3 era that really got me. Before that, I was into Adidas like everybody else, Shell Toes and, Reebok Classics and Nike Cortez. But I really, I just always had a passion for sneakers and looking fly. And I was a polo head my whole life. I got the Low Lifes book somewhere floating around here, in this room where,
You actually got your hands on it. Oh my
I
goodness, you got
got
your
it,
hands
man.
on it.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh,
It's
look,
sealed. It's sealed
we
up in
had
a
Thurston Howell
box.
on the show. Man, we had Thurston Howell on the show a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
man. Shout to Thurston and
Yeah,
Racklow,
man.
Foxlow, the whole crew.
Yeah.
And I was
But
asking Thurston, do you have the book? And he's like, I don't have any more.
yeah, I picked it up. Paid a lot of money for it, but
Yeah,
it was a
yeah.
must have for me because looking fly, man, is something I take very seriously. I won't even go to the gas station unless I'm looking decent, man. And so for me, I don't know. Nike is obviously for me obvious. I say obviously, but for me, Nike is what I own the most of. Jordans and foam posits. I'm looking around my room and Air Max. I'm a big Air Max head.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I like a lot of things, man. I like designer sneakers. I like the Alexander McQueens and the Louboutins. I got a few of them, but really, really, like I just right before the podcast, these came in the mail. The new Union LA ones. I mean these,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Um, you know,
Oh,
and now that there were a lot of shoes as a youngster, man, that I wasn't able to, acquire, and now I try to acquire every shoe that I never had, and so it's something I do daily, and there's new shoes coming to my house every day, so but
Man. Bonafide sneakerhead, and I feel you, man. Style
yeah,
does not ever expire.
yeah,
Freshness
nah.
forever.
It is. I'm still a big K Swiss fan, man. But only the all whites. Summertime only. I mean, it's. I still got a lot of my Gerbeau X brand jeans from back in the day. The X brand was the only fly Gerbeau ever made. not that stuff they were doing in the late '90s with all the different crazy colors and all that. But big polo head, and I like Black Sea, man, has really been a good dude. Hooked me up with some folks that having custom jackets made and doing really really paying homage to like the Dapper Dan era. Having some custom things made. I'll be coming out with here in some videos. You'll see them soon. But just everything fashion is I'm a fan of.
Gotcha. What about the jewelry
that's
game?
good.
We don't want to get you caught up out there, but what about the jewelry game, man? I mean Audemars, Rolex, Patek
Uh,
Philippe.
yeah, I'm
What?
a I'm a I'm a watch guy. I have a couple pieces. If you can catch them in some videos. And
Gotcha.
I've got some pieces made. I just had my right way chain made. That's Black Seas label. So yeah. I mean, it's I was always into my watches and into my chains, and I mean it's just a thing, and um, you know if I could if I could afford a 2,000 gram Cuban, I probably have one. You know, the big chunky. You know. You know. But
Yeah, man.
so yeah, I think it's all part of it. It's all part of who I am anyway, right? It's just who I've always been, and man, I love that shit, man.
I tell you, when we think about sneakers and jewelry, I think really I think for the modern era, because Slick Rick, of course, the Kangol King,
Yeah.
But when we think about the '90s era, there are two rappers in particular.
Hold on, Grand Pooba's one of them. Got to be one of them.
Yeah, can't forget the great Poobah, the great Grand Poobah.
Yeah.
He definitely. But when you're talking about in the '90s era, when it really began to go off in terms of when we really began to see more, and two of them come from the Wu-Tang, coincidentally, Raekwon and Ghostface.
Yeah.
But
sneaker joint, yeah.
Oh yeah, man. Listen, they had me trying to figure out how to dye wallabies, out here, and we was trying to figure that out, man. And them dudes was always super fly. For me, Grand Poobah was always the flyest dude in hip hop, early on, right? I mean, I remember getting magazines and album covers and trying to like style my outfits to look like them, and there's definitely been some real fly dudes, to come before us.
Man, but I think when we started seeing the money come in the '90s, because back in the day, you had a lot of guys who, in terms of the Rolexes and the Cubans, that was kind of for a lot of those guys who were really doing it, it was kind of an anomaly. For those, of course, we had guys like Rakim, who had it, EPMD. When we get into the '90s, around '93, '94, '95, of course, Dre and Snoop are coming in. Death Row, shout out to them. Kenya Ware, who's a great friend of ours. Of course, Suge Knight, Daz Corrupt, what they were doing. Wu-Tang comes in, and in '95, the shit just goes bananas. Yeah. In terms of, especially, I think when I saw that tarantula piece that Raekwon had, I lost that and that dragon plate medallion that he had. I damn near lost my mind.
Yeah.
I was like, and of course, Ghostface, rocking that Cuban with the Jesus piece.
Yeah.
That one of the flyest pieces ever.
Ever, yeah.
Ever. I mean, when you think about it from New York, if you went to Tito and Manny's of New York, rest in peace, to Tito. I mean, that's where a lot of rappers were getting their shit. Big, he got his Jesus head done by them. Shout out to George the Jeweler, who's carrying on a tradition out there. If you ever go to New York, Shane, go see my man George the Jeweler. He's a great guy in terms of jewelry.
All right.
But it's style. There's always an intrinsic link with style and hip hop. And I think for what you do with your music, you have the perfect element of talent, charisma, and passion that all coalesce into something fresh. And it's more importantly what you do, Shane. It's all authentic. It's all real. And it's something that people can feel. And that's important.
I appreciate that, man. I really do, and that's important to me too, right? I mean, I can never see myself being somebody I'm just not, right? It's got to feel. Everything's got to be organic, and that's how I live every day, man. Everything's got to be organic.
No doubt.
Definitely.
And man, we probably about to wrap it up because the time restraint then got a little overboard, but we thank you once again for joining us, man. You got the dope project out. Care to let people know where to find the albums, and do you have any shout outs to give out?
Yeah, absolutely. So the album is officially dropping 4/25 on all platforms. It's available for pre-order right now on Apple Music, but it'll be everywhere. So 4/25, we got the listening party this Sunday. for a select group of folks here locally. And a few folks coming in for it. I had a big shout out to the entire team, man. Joe Fresco, Black C, my man Zach Brown, DB Dollars, TDK the Great, Chillmatic, Cocaine. I got MC8 on the project.
Compton,
Dizzy
stand up.
Wright, Dizzy Wright, and the landlord. Everybody that had a big part in this project, Jeremiah Rios, the engineer, and all the hallway productions, man. Thank y'all, and it's just it's been a good process, man. And I appreciate y'all giving me the time to talk about it.
Look, we appreciate you more. Thank you. Will you be having physicals as well for that album?
Yeah, soon. I'm gonna order some vinyl and some CDs here shortly. I'm not gonna press up a large amount, but I will make sure y'all get a vinyl and a CD coming your way.
Thank you. Shang, I'm gonna drop my personal info to you in the DM, and
Okay.
as well as my, and we'll be in, my contact, and we'll be able to connect off air. Definitely next time I make it to Vegas, we gotta link up and just chop it up. And I got a couple people I gotta put you in touch with as well.
Okay.
This has been incredible, man. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Thank you again.
Yeah, man. Appreciate y'all too. Sincerely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna keep in touch, bro.
Yeah, we'll be in touch. I'll let y'all.
All right.
All right. Peace.